Hi everyone and welcome to the Strong Families podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Jo, and on this podcast we have real talk with real parents about the highs, the lows and the in-betweens of family life in the hopes that we can all learn a little something.
That's right. So grab a coffee, strap in, and we hope by the end of this podcast all of our families have grown a little stronger.
I know I need it. Hey Amy.
Hi Jo.
Another week of the Strong Families podcast.
Another week. What week is this? We've had Michelle, we've had Justin, we've had Cass. This is week 4.
That's right.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Week 4 already. Yeah.
A month old.
Oh, it's our month's
Yeah,
birthday.
our month's
Happy birthday, Jo.
I think we actually know. We can still count in weeks. You know how with babies you count in weeks?
Yeah.
Until what? Like most people count in weeks for the first
some
almost
people
year.
Some people count. Yeah, no, I was never that mum.
Me neither. I was never like,
No.
here's my child. They're 400 weeks
You know?
old.
I was never even a month. Like, mum, they were like,
Okay.
people would be like, how old's your kid? And I'm like, they're turning 1 in November. Like,
Yeah.
just that we're
It's
getting
hard
closer.
to keep track of.
It is. Like, there's enough going on up here. I can't be a calendar as well.
That's right.
But anyway.
Anyway,
makes me chuckle.
how's pregnancy going for you, Amy, with number 2?
Pregnancy's good. I mean, on the drive in, I was starting to feel a bit nauseous and I almost threw up, but that's just the joys of pregnancy.
That's pregnancy for you, isn't it?
That's pregnancies for me.
Lots of nausea.
It's better this time though, because I had it the whole time with my pregnancy with Archer, and I was popping on Dancitron like they were Eclipse mints. But this time, I can go a week without needing to do anything. So
Okay,
I'm
that's
actually
a
doing
positive.
a lot better.
Does that mean that you might be having a girl?
Oh,
Isn't
who
it meant to be
knows?
different?
Who
for
knows?
The different
I'm
genders?
trying to not assume.
Because you're not finding out, are
I'm
you?
not. I'm not.
Okay.
And that really shocks people. Like a lot of
It shocks me.
And-
I would like to know.
It's funny because my best friend is pregnant and she knows and she's not telling anyone, and that's bothering me more than the gender of my own child.
Not knowing. Well,
Like, you
both
know.
of them bother me. I
Okay,
just think
great.
everyone should know.
Just
and
get
you
it
should
out
tell
there.
everyone.
Get it
It
out
would
there.
make life better for me to know what you were having,
Well,
please.
yeah, I don't know. I think I like having a little bit of mystery. And
True.
like when we were pregnant with Archer, like Prestons have boys. It's like the running thing. So I think I kind of always knew this one's a boy in my gut. So it made it a little bit easier. But like in just a bit of context, the last few generations of Prestons, there's been one female cousin.
Right.
Like that's it.
Okay.
That's just
So
the way they
a
make
girl Preston is
a
a
rare-
rare
a very rare
rare
thing. So
jewel.
Chris is one of 4 boys, and his
Okay.
brother just had a girl. So we're like, oh well, there she is. There's the girl.
You never know.
You never know.
Could
We
have
never
cute
know.
little girl cousins.
Yeah. So with Archer though, even still, because we always knew, like from when we got married, we loved the name Archer. And so we had agreed that when baby came out, Chris would tell me, like, this is what it is. And I'll never forget when Archer was pulled up on my chest. Chris was like, oh, it's Archer. Like,
Okay.
this kid that we've been dreaming of for years, he's here. So that was a really precious moment. This
So
one's
you're
still,
gonna
this
have it
one's
again.
nameless.
Okay.
We
Haven't
no-
picked a name.
Neither gender. We cannot
Right.
agree. So I don't know how it's going to look this time. But
You're going to be that couple that waits a
Honestly.
week to pick a name,
yeah,
aren't you?
I feel like Kylie Jenner made it cool, so I think that's just what we're gonna do because
Right.
she like didn't name her kid for donkey's years.
Okay, I didn't know
You
that.
didn't know
I'm
that.
not
That's
up
all right.
with
That's
what
fine.
the Jenners do.
It's fine. Honestly, I should care less about what the Jenners do. But yeah, so we have no idea. But it's actually interesting that we're kind of 2 and done. Unless something changes, we just feel like 2's our number. But Chris really wants to be a girl dad. But so yeah, so it feels a little bit weightier this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I was like, babe, like, do you feel like you would like to know earlier, just so that you can kind of get excited or process that? Because gender disappointment is a thing.
Mhm.
Like, do you want the time to process that? And he kind of went back and forth, and then ultimately he said, once I see my baby, it's my baby.
I think that's so true.
Yeah, I'm not
You're never going to be disappointed when you
No.
meet your child. It's like they're just
Yeah.
were always meant to be.
Always meant
they
to
were
be.
always planned for your family.
Yeah.
That little person was known
Yeah.
before they were even formed.
Exactly.
And I think it's just
Yeah.
yeah. Not to downplay that some people do really struggle with gender
Yeah, of
disappointment,
course.
but I think that there's something so special about meeting your child that you guys will just be in your baby bubble
whatever
and loving
happens,
life and
yeah.
hopefully picking a name really quickly to tell the
Hopefully.
rest of us.
Gosh, I
That would
hope
be
so. I
great.
just feel like all of them are.
Yes.
Chris likes like the names he's coming up with, I think are perfect middle names, like Hope and Joy. I'm like, no, they are middle names. They're not. Sorry to any hopes and joys.
we should wrap this up before we offend too many people.
But yeah, so we're really struggling with the name. That's just the way it is.
Husband and wife sometimes just very different opinions on what names. But
Definitely.
again, once you pick a name, they become that person, and you can't
will be
imagine them anything else either.
Exactly.
So all of these things will work themselves
They
out.
will.
Yeah.
They will.
Yep.
But yeah, bottom line is baby is, we
Doing
don't know. They're doing well. We don't know what they are, but pregnancy's flying, and before we know it, I will have a little one again.
Another
and I can't
Preston
wait.
for the
Another
world,
Preston.
and the world will be better for
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. Well, we actually just wrapped up talking to Crystal.
Yes.
So Crystal came on the podcast today. We had a bit of a chat to her, and I learnt a lot about Crystal. So just a little, we're talking about her being on the other side of, how would you say it? Building a healthier family. So her and her husband's backgrounds were a little bit it wasn't what they wanted for their own family, a little bit more dysfunctional. Feels like a heavy word saying dysfunctional, but a bit more that way. And so how they came together to build a bit more of their dream family picture. So yeah, it was great.
It's a great chat, and it'll be a great listen. So let's get into it.
Cool.
Well, hello, Crystal. Welcome to the Strong Families podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Great to be here. That's exciting.
We're excited to just hear about your story and learn a little bit from you. And we always like to start our podcast by asking, what is your family snapshot? So the picture of your family, who you are, what you're about, that type of thing.
Yeah, cool. So my family is my husband Chris and I, and we have 3 young kids at home, so 10, 8 and 4, and a nearly 1-year-old dog that the kids have been asking for 5 years. And a stepdaughter who now lives with her mother, so no longer at home, but still clearly part of the family. That's us. We're in our own home that we bought just about 2 years ago, so that's exciting too. Big step. So that's us.
And what's your family like? What do you like to do? Are you loud? Are you quiet? That kind of thing.
We're probably loud if you were to pick it. Lots of music in the house all the time. We like just trying to have family time together, so board games and playing in the backyard. We go camping adventures, out to national parks and things, just to kind of go exploring and make memories together.
Beautiful. And what do you do for work?
So I am a team manager in commercial banking, which means I manage a team of people who look after business needs, accounts and loans and anything that businesses need.
Yeah, beautiful.
Sounds high pressure.
It
little
is.
Bit. Does it feel high pressure to you, or are you're a very cool, calm, collected person?
I've been in the bank for 20 years, which makes me feel old every time I say it. But I started in the branch, so I feel like I've kind of learnt the whole banking system. So it's kind of just what I know now. I think if I was to go to a different role or a different company, then it would be super high pressure and really stressful. But I feel like once you've sort of learnt the routines and the rhythm, I kind of just go with it.
Yeah. So that's full-time work.
Full-time.
Big mental load, would you say?
So I've got a team. I think my team is 12.
Yeah, okay.
If I get that wrong, that shows my mental load. So I have
that's a load.
a fairly big team, and as much as getting outcomes, I really try hard to be managing and caring for my people as much as for the outcomes. So at times it can be a big mental load, especially because my team all have lives and families and
of course
life, right?
Of course,
life happens.
And so do you. So how do you go balancing that working mum life with 3 kids and a fur baby and a stepdaughter? How?
Yeah. Sounds like a lot when you say it like that. So I think I am very structured and organised. And so I very purposefully, when I'm working, I'm working, and I put everything into that, and then when I'm not, I'm off. I don't look at my phone, I don't turn on my laptop, that's it, I'm off.
What I need to learn.
And I think interestingly, I read a study years ago when I came back from, I think it was after my third baby, I went back to work, and mothers are proven more productive in the workplace than anyone else. So more productive than women who are not mothers, and more productive than men. And I think it's because, I know, right? I think for me, it's that if I'm at work and I'm not with my children, then I'm going to work my butt off and get it done so that I can be with my children. So that's kind of always my mentality.
You're not a time waster.
In balance.
You're like, I'm going to do this. And
I'm going to get it finished and get home and be with the kids. But it is a balance. Like occasionally I'll fly to Sydney for work for a night. So then you sort of balance, okay, what's the home routine in the meantime? Thankfully, Chris is amazing and we have got a good time frame balance. So he's got his own business. And when we first got married, prior to his own business, he worked 6 till 2. So he was always left before me, but was always home before me. So we kind of just got in this rhythm of, he's home with the kids and does dinner and still does that. That's kind of just our routine. So that's been really good just for trying to balance the, like if I've got to work late, we've kind of got it covered. But it is a constant. I put everything in my calendar. That's my
right.
So if we're going and doing something with the kids or got appointments, and it goes in the calendar, and I stick it in my work calendar too if it's work time, just to make sure that what I do is what happens. And I think the kids know because I'm a follow through person. If I say I'm going to do it, it happens.
Great.
So it means that the work team know if I say I'm out on an appointment for 2 hours, that I'll be offline for 2 hours and then they'll be able to reach me. And my kids equally, if I'm like, I really need to work now, but we'll go to the park and go for a walk when I finish at 3. Then they'll actually go and let me work uninterrupted because they know at 3 o'clock we're going to the park.
Right. So no empty promises. You're really consistent. So the kids can trust they don't need to hound you because you've promised that you'll spend time and you will do it. I think that's a real challenge because I know for me sometimes I go, kids, we are going to do this, and then things get in the way and then they don't necessarily know, can I trust that mum is going to give me time? So you're just very intentional by the sounds of things with your time, that if you're going to do it, you'll do it.
And I think honest, because things do come up and there have been times when we haven't gone to the park. But it's just honestly saying sorry and telling them why, just to try and maintain that trust, right? That relationship, that they get it. They get that we couldn't go and they're normally disappointed, but we make mistakes, and I think that's good to teach your kids too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's actually normal to make mistakes.
Yes, even
That's
the big
great.
people do that too.
And to apologise and be honest.
Yeah.
I know I've been talking to my kids a lot lately about just be honest with me. Like if we're just honest with each other, then we can work through stuff. So I guess you're modelling that by just being honest with your schedule. Do you feel a tension between your work life, your mum life? Does it feel like they're fighting each other sometimes, or you enjoy them both equally?
Sometimes there is definitely tension. I do, anytime something happens with the kids that's big, that clearly kind of carries over beyond when I've got to go to work, or if I bring home a lot of kind of emotional stuff from a team, like if something's happening in one of my team's lives at work, you kind of do bring that home. So there definitely is crossover. I remember years ago I had we saw a guest speaker at a conference, I can't remember who it was, but spoke about work-life balance. And it's always stuck with me because she talked about everyone always pictures the scales and it's work on one side and life on the other, and I've never worked with that image. It just doesn't stick for me. But she talked about it's more spread out than that, and she kind of pictured this pendulum that sort of spins around. And for anyone who's got kids, in my mind, it's that, that little like punching toy that for my kids it was a penguin, but it's like a little boxing bag thing, and the kids kick it or punch it and it bounces back.
Oh yes,
so that's my work-life balance picture, right? Is that
just
little
like
punching,
bouncing all the time.
like bounces in every different direction. Because I feel like they're not on separate scales, and especially not now, like in the post-COVID world, it kind of all does meld in together. Like we work from home. So I think it's more that image of work and life and everything's all in there together. It's just depending on what you're doing at every given time, it'll lean more to one side.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, it kind of comes back to the middle. That's my little my little picture.
That's such a good picture.
So I think there definitely is tension, and I think you know, like if I'm totally honest, there are moments when I do, you know, have a little cry or have a little vent on whatever's happening, either the work front or the kid front. That's just you know, that's
There's pressures.
It's
isn't
honest,
there,
right?
that
Like
we're
you
just-
choose your time. Yeah, some days are just hard, and you know, you kind of get to that moment where the kids go to bed and just
get ready to do it all again tomorrow.
yeah.
What do you do to rest then if you feel like the punching bag's, you know, always bouncing back? Do you find that there's ways that you can recuperate, rest, feel like you've got energy to do it all again?
Yeah, I really actually do get energy from just hanging out with the kids.
Great,
Like sometimes just lying in bed talking with one of the boys before bed, or actually does just make me it just kind of, I don't know, recenters you with what's important, and just nice.
Fill up the
nice
life
family
tank.
time. Yeah. So just hanging out with the kids is good. I love music, so often it'll just be putting on music and either just listening to it and feeling better, or you know, singing my little heart out to get all the emotions out. So
what's your artist of choice that you
I really don't have one. I'm so I'm dreadful at the what's your favourite thing, because I just like everything. All of it. All of it.
What do you like? Yes.
Yes,
I
that's
like
right.
all
Everything.
music.
Everything.
All right.
And I used to like reading, and then, you know, 3 kids later, who's got time for reading? I read with the kids. I've read heaps of kids' books.
Kids books, for sure.
I have started
some
listening
really
to
good
audio
ones.
books, which has been nice. That's been kind of the last few months. I listen to audio books while I'm driving to and from work. So that's actually kind of a nice way to zone out and, you know, kind of recharge, just some me time.
Yeah, transition from work to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, great.
Cool. So obviously this season of our podcast is called On the Other Side, and we're interviewing people about just things that they're on the other side of. And I know from talking to you that you've mentioned that both you and your husband Chris came from, I guess you would call them messy, a bit dysfunctional homes, broken homes. So, but I see you as having this lovely family. You've got great kids. So being on the other side of coming from that kind of broken background, I just would wonder if you would mind kind of speaking into that, I guess, share as much as you want about what life was like for you growing up and what it's been like bringing or trying not to bring some of that stuff into your family now.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey looking at, because for us, as we've kind of worked through together both our backgrounds, we also recognise that our parents and their backgrounds and kind of what they learn about relationships and how to do things was kind of broken or a bit toxic too. So it's interesting how you get the, you know, like the flow on, because I think everybody does the best with what they have.
Yeah.
And so for me, my mum and dad separated when I was 12. And so then it was just my brother and I with mum, and still, you know, saw dad, but certainly a different family dynamic, quite young. And then for Chris, similarly, his first marriage broke down when their little girl was quite young. So I had the advantage of claiming her as my own when she was 10, but that had been broken down a lot before that. And then both of us, as far as relationships go through our lives, have had the full gamut of toxic relationships, like physical abuse and mental abuse, and just messy, right? Like, and really, really challenging. And I think what you kind of learn is, and I know for me, there were relationships, and I clearly remember being in what you look back and go, that was like poster child for a horrendous relationship. And at the time, I felt like it was not a nice place to be, but I didn't know what else to do. Like
Yep.
you don't, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember a few moments having those moments where it doesn't feel right, but I don't know how to get out. I don't know what
Right.
next or what to. So you kind of just go with what you know. Better the devil you know, right? So you just
Yes.
you kind of do. You repeat, and
Yeah.
that's how you get these generations of just toxic
Repeated
because you
patterns
just
of
you go with what you
dysfunction.
know.
Yes.
And it's almost more comfortable to be in what you know doesn't feel right than to
Be alone.
go out on your
Yeah.
own and like,
Yeah.
what does that even look
Yeah.
like?
Okay.
So that's kind of where we came from.
Yes.
Chris and I met in year 12 in high school.
Oh.
He came to my school formal
Yeah.
with one of my friends, brought friends to school formal. So that's where we met.
Yep.
We had, sweet teenage love and then, teenage hormones and emotions
Yep.
and all got involved and that ended.
Okay.
But we never forgot each other and we always kind of remembered. And so 13 years later, after lots and lots of, mistakes, big mistakes and disastrous relationships and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, we met back up. And 8 months later, he proposed. Because
Would make a
it
great
was,
movie.
It was so good.
That would.
Would.
I could see that being a wonderful rom-com.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
And his proposal was beautiful. It was at the top of Mount Coolum, and it was
Yeah.
basically all about that we had done a lot of challenges
Yeah.
in our lives.
Yeah.
But this is our first mountain together. It was very sweet.
Aw.
But very reminiscent of our challenges. Like that was
Yes.
where we'd both come from.
So cool.
Yes.
And so, I remember before he proposed, early in our kind of conversations around, we were both really good at like, I don't want to do this and we're not going to do this and I'm not
Yep.
going to do this and this. So we were really good at here's what we don't want in a relationship as a marriage
Yeah.
and here's what we're not going to do as parents. Like it was,
Great.
we were really
Yeah.
great at
things
here's
we're
all the
not
things
gonna
we're
do.
not
Yeah.
going to do.
Yeah.
The problem is you inevitably do what you have seen.
Yes.
You just become. I have become my mum, and my mum's
Yeah.
awesome. But I can hear it. It comes
Yeah.
out. I say things exactly like my mum.
Yeah.
So it kind of doesn't matter how much you're determined not to do something.
Yeah.
Some of it is so
Yes.
deeply ingrained. It's really
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
to change those
Yes.
patterns.
Yeah,
So
and so that was our first big thing was like, okay, so this is our list. That's awesome. What do we do? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so it's like we know all the things we don't want. What does a good marriage look like? What
Yeah.
does good parenting look like?
Yeah.
so where
So
did you
we
go
were
for
really
that?
purposeful. Yeah. So I, before I was with Chris, I actually met a family at a church I attended, and I spent a lot of time with them. I babysat their kids from when they were really little. They were just an amazing family, an amazing parents, an amazing couple, and I really learned a lot from them. And I think that helped in kind of getting me ready for relationship with Chris. And so they were a huge part for us, just to, a safe place to be able to talk to them about how do you deal, how do you have a healthy argument?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, how
Yeah.
do you do that? So I think that was really important. And so having known them for kind of 10 years by that stage and really, knowing them well enough that we could ask them anything and kind of learn from them, became really obvious that if you don't know what you don't know, you actually have to be brave and seek out the people that look
Yeah.
like they've got it together
Yeah.
and ask them how they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I think the two things for me is I have always kind of had the thought or the feeling of like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And if me being brave and talking to someone I don't know very well and going, like, you guys look like amazing parents, how do you do that? Because it's really scary. It's that if the worst that's going to happen is that they'll give me something that's not useful or they tell me they're not going to help me, then nothing's changed. I'm exactly
Yeah.
where I started. So I've got
Yeah.
nothing to lose in asking the question.
Oh, great, yeah.
And then there's in We Bought a Zoo, there's a quote that says, all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage
Yes.
and it can change everything.
Yes.
And it's so true.
Yes.
And it's been that process of just that 20 seconds of insane courage to ask for advice and
Yeah.
ask for help and introduce myself to people
Yeah.
that look like they'll be a good connection to have. And I think that's been really key for us, is just, seeking out couples who are, I met a couple a few months ago that I did seek out and basically just told her that I'm going to adopt her as my grandmother. But it's that, like, they've been married for longer than I've been alive, and that's like, that doesn't happen by accident. So we want those people in our lives to learn from and build that positive relationship.
Cool.
For anyone that's listening that maybe needs to hear some of those things, give us one or two things that you have learnt from people to take into your relationship and family life.
Yeah, I think a big one for us is actually recognising that all of the past, you can't just go, well, that was that, we're not going to do that. It doesn't work, because you have to actually recognise what you went through and what impact that had, because it is real and it is personal, and it does change your view on the world and on relationships. And so I think the one is just to actually be honest and be brave in discussing that, like with a trusted friend or a family member or your mum or whoever that is.
Right.
You actually need to talk it out and talk
you
out.
won't heal by just sweeping something under
Correct.
the rug.
Yes.
It'll be there whether you like it or not, and
Yeah.
probably rear its ugly head at the worst time.
Exactly.
So it's better
when you've
to
got kids,
deal
it
with
all
it.
comes out once you've got kids.
Isn't it
Everything
true?
changes once there's
I
kids.
thought I was so patient and loving
Yeah.
before I had children.
Yeah.
I was the best mum ever before
Yeah.
I had kids.
Yeah.
And then I had them and realised
Everything
that
changes.
Yeah, I was going to be a mum that baked and sung songs and was so pleasant.
I'm sure you
time
do.
I baked. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
actually deal with stuff.
and probably be gentle on yourself at how long that takes, because actually having kids, there are things that you thought, no, that was all dealt with, and kids push your buttons and they will dig things up.
It's like there's deeper levels
that haven't been
healing.
talked about. So I think that's really important. And then I think as far as like a marriage and our parenting is just you're constantly learning, like every day. Chris and I are learning how to be better husband and wife, and we have some cracking arguments, and sometimes you do kind of the next day you're like, didn't really go how we wanted that to go, maybe we should just give it a minute and talk again, like, so it's some of that recognising that we all make very silly mistakes, and we're learning every day, and you don't know what you don't know. So never be afraid to find help, attend Justin Coulson events so that you learn from someone who raised 6 children and probably knows a thing or two.
Probably does.
Things like that I think is so important, and just getting a support network has been the biggest thing. Like, if you come from a background where you either didn't have a support network or you have left what was once your support network for whatever the reason might be.
It wasn't as healthy as
that's
you
right.
would like it to be.
Is just like get plugged in, find somewhere. Like for me, getting plugged into a church and meeting people from all different walks of life that I never would have even necessarily come across just in the work bubble, has been so valuable, just in meeting new families and people from different work backgrounds and family backgrounds. It's just so valuable being surrounded by people with different experience, because that's how you learn from people that have done it before you, or made silly mistakes like you have, that you can share from each other. That's right. How to learn and get better.
It's amazing how much you observe just from being around other families. Hey, like, especially if their children are that little bit older, and you think, oh, we haven't hit that stage yet, but I'm sure we will. And so you get little practical tips and things like that just from observing.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found that there's been people that you have not wanted to get advice from? Like, how do you pick the right people and the right, families that you want to learn from?
Observation is a great one, and I do. I'm very much, I think, because I started my working career in customer service, you kind of learn in customer service to watch people and to listen to how people are reacting, so you know how to look after them. So that's kind of my default. I do observe people. So I think observing and watching behaviours and things that they're saying gives you a good gauge for whether that's like, ooh, I need to learn from them, or you kind of, I'll just be kind and you'll be one of my acquaintances, but I'm not going to, you're not going to be my trusted advisor. So I think observation and sometimes you just have to get to know them and go down that path, and I think follow your instinct. I think culturally we underestimate that too much. Like we don't actually just trust ourselves. And we're so often right. Like your initial first instinct about a person or about what you should do is so often exactly where you're supposed to be going. So I think, trust that instinct. And again, like be honest. Don't be afraid to think that that's the right person and start getting to know them and having conversations. And when you recognise that actually that's not the kind of parent I want to be, don't keep asking for more advice from that person. Go and find someone else to learn. In saying that, though, I think we learn equally as much from the what not to do stuff, like, because you can listen to that and take it on and go, okay, that's not really me, but now I understand what that looks like.
We have these lulls sometimes.
I'm like, I don't want to talk too much.
I don't want to talk over each other.
All right, we'll edit this bit out.
I got it.
All right, which direction do we want to go in? I was thinking you would take the next
you thought
question.
I was going to take it? Oh, I'm so sorry. I think it's very cool to hear that that you and Chris have really partnered up and you want to kind of change what the pattern has been. I think that's very cool. And so when you guys got together, what was the picture? This is what we want to do.
Yeah, so we wanted kids. We always knew we wanted kids. So it was having kids. We really just wanted to both be good parents and a good couple. So we were very purposeful about wanting to do marriage the right way. Like we both had experience with how not to. So it was let's do this the right way. And we had so many nights of like ridiculously long conversations, just kind of talking through how do we do this so that, and that was all before we got married so that we could, give it our best shot.
Totally.
And we're certainly still learning. And I feel like every age the kids get to is like a different level of testing the marriage.
Figure it out.
Testing the marriage,
again.
And you as an individual as well. Tests you as an individual and your relationship.
I think that's a very good piece of even just relationship advice. Like when you meet someone, having those conversations early before any ball is rolling. Like before you get married, before you have kids, like what do you value? What's important to you? Because then you're on the same team from the get-go. So I think that's a great piece of advice. And
especially all the big questions, like, things like, do you smack the kids or not? Huge one. And you haven't even had kids yet. So people will be like, why would you have that conversation? Because then it's not even up for discussion. You already know exactly how you're going to roll. Like what does dinner look like around the table? I remember we talked about that, and we do what we spoke about. We have dinner together as a family, and we talk about our day and what we're thankful for. And that's something we spoke about before we even got married or had children. And even, I think the big stuff like, what's our stance going to be if the kids go way off the rails and, bring home some random friend who's been kicked out of home because they're both in trouble. What do we do with that? So I think you have to just talk about everything. Like nothing's off the table. Because it does just, there's so many challenges day to day that always come up. And I think if you've had the conversation around the big stuff, like what do you both believe, what do you both stand on, what's the make or break kind of things, then the little challenges are easier. You can kind of stand shoulder to shoulder and know you're good because you've got the foundations right.
Do your kids ever try and break up the team a little bit, like play mum against dad, dad against mum? Does that happen?
Sometimes.
A bit?
I love hearing it down the end of the house. Like I'll hear my daughter especially is the master of I'm just going to try the other parent, and I'll hear her. She'll come and talk to me. Mum, whatever it is that she desperately wants. I'm like, no, sweetheart, we've already spoken about that. Fine. And she trundles off, and you can hear her, Daddy. I'm like, I know where this is going.
Voice that they put on.
But we're onto it because it's very quickly followed by, have you already spoken to your mother about this?
Yeah, good.
And because our kids are honest, they inevitably, the whole tone of voice, Yes, she said no.
That's good.
But it is. Look, I can't ever begrudge them for trying. It actually kind of makes me proud that they continue to attempt to negotiate anyway.
That'll be
Motivated
great.
Give it their best effort.
You don't want them to be too compliant,
That's
I
right.
suppose.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to have a bit of guts to
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've just taken a lot away from that. But what I would love to hear is, as a mum, can you give me your best mum hack?
Yes, I was actually thinking about this in the
Great.
lead up because a lot of what we do, you kind of just do it. I'm like, I don't know, what is my hack that I could
is your
share?
hack?
But I do have one. So
Yeah.
it's kind of two that rolls into one.
Okay.
So from when we got married, every year I do photo books, like a yearbook.
Okay.
And I've done it from when we got married, every year of our family, we have a yearbook. And it's because everything's just digital photos now. And we just take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos.
Yep.
And then they're kind of just stored somewhere. And I remember as a kid, I loved pulling photos out of the cupboard and flicking through photos. So I print photo books. So there's real books and the kids get them down all the time. And, you know, like when Granddad comes over, they'll get, Granddad, have you seen our new book? And so then they'll sit with Granddad and go through and then they'll talk about everything that we did in the year. So it's kind of like reliving all the memories again. So I love that. And it's just it probably takes me almost 6 months to actually put it together because I just do it in my spare time. As soon as we get to January, I'm like, right, I can start last year's book and I load all the photos in, and then whenever I've got spare time, I'll just add to it. So it nearly takes me a year to print it. But that's been really great, just getting those family memories.
Kind of creates that
in
family
paper.
identity almost for your kids to be like, this is us, this is who we are, this is what we've done. I love that.
That
it's
really
just
speaks to me as a
just
photographer.
I guess you're a photographer. You're like, yes,
Someone
all
that
about
prints
the
their
photos.
This
I've
day
been
and
thinking lately I need to do that because the
Yeah.
kids are, you know, they always want to look at your phone, and I'm always like, stop looking at my phone.
Yeah.
But there's something they want to sometimes see
See the
photos
pictures.
of things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we've done or little videos of themselves. And I think if I had it in a book,
Yeah,
I'd be
they
all
can just
for
get
them
it down and
flipping
look at it.
through it.
Yeah. And so the other one that I do, I remember my mum had this like drawer of stuff that I'd made, and I'm sure every mum is picturing their spot for stuff.
Yep.
So it's the, you know, the macaroni necklace and
yep.
the pictures with the feathers and the things, and thousands of them, right? Once they start kindy, it doesn't stop. So I decided there's no value in that because they're disintegrated. Like, but as time goes on, they don't look like whatever they were supposed to originally be.
And let's be honest, in the first place, they probably didn't look that much like they were supposed to be either. Your child brings
But they were
something
very
strange.
creative and beautiful.
Oh, it's a pig, is it? Okay.
Sure it is. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
had
so
12 legs.
I take photos of every artwork when
Great.
it comes home, and they go in the bin. It's very controversial. Some mothers get quite upset about the fact that I don't keep any of it. I take photos of all of them, and they go in the bin, and I make an artwork gallery book.
Oh, yeah.
And the first one I did, I think, was from when the boys were tiny. When they started bringing stuff home from daycare and kindy, I started doing it. So I printed the first book when I think my youngest son would have been like 3. So he got to look at the book of his big brother. And so when he started going to kindy, it was like that light bulb moment that I'm like, yes, I've done it. I've crossed over. This is the best thing I've ever done. He came home and went, Mummy, look what I made today. I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. He went, take a picture so I can put it in the bin.
Yes! That's amazing because most kids are like, don't throw out that broken cardboard box that I brought home. And you're like, I just want to throw out the cardboard box. But
So I take a
made
picture
as
and
a
it goes in the
mum.
bin.
You
So we have this
made it.
gallery, but it also means I have some of the pictures in the gallery are Play-Doh creations that you know you could never keep.
Oh, no.
Yes.
But it's in the gallery. So yeah, that's my definite hack. That the
When
kids
you're old
and the kids
grey,
pull it
you're-
out and they
you're
go
gonna
through
be
their
looking
gallery.
through it when you're old and grey, the kids won't care anymore.
Yeah.
They'll be
Yeah.
adults and
Yeah,
you'll be
that's
looking
right.
through it.
Yeah.
my little
Remember when she
genius
came
did.
home with this?
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that
yeah,
hack.
I love that too.
That is a great question.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, winner.
Nice.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Yeah, it's been
Thank
so
you
good.
so much for taking the time to talk
Thank
to us. It's
you.
been so interesting to hear your story, and I'm sure many people will get something out of it for sure. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's all for this episode of the Strong Families podcast.
We are so glad you joined us for this chat. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us on Instagram at strongfamilies.au or on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. Now, go enjoy your week, enjoy your family, and we'll join us again next week.
Cool. See you next time, guys.